Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Mortal Citizens. I'm sorry about the delay. It's been a hot minute since I've done a bit of recording, a couple of weeks. I did say I'd do this weekly, but I was waiting for the FAQ to come out. It doesn't seem to have come out in 2 weeks since the book's been released, so we'll leave it at that. I'll do a review on the FAQ and anything if and when it does come out. We might be waiting to the mid-year FAQ. Anyway, once again, welcome. Thank you all for joining me again. And yeah, I hope you all like the first episode of Mortal Citizens, and we're going to be working on this next episode today. So, what we're going to talk about today is I tried out a Hallowheart list. I'm going to talk about how it went, how I think I can improve it, and things I didn't think went particularly well, where I see the weaknesses in the army, and stuff like that. General overview of like how my list went and how I think Hallowheart might go. But before we get into that, I'll talk a little bit about my own personal hobby time. It's been a bit slack. For those who know, I'm a new dad. I've got a 4-week-old, literally 4 weeks old at the day of recording this. And he's keeping us up at all hours of the night, especially the wife, poor her. And thankful she lets me come and talk about Warhammer occasionally and still paint. I've done a little bit of painting since the book came out. I've been working on a Celestial Hurricanum. And I'm working on that primarily for the worldwide escalation run by Tristan Gray and... Oh, I forgot the other dude's name and I feel terrible. I am sorry, other dude. Bryce. There, I've remembered it. I would have felt horrible for that. But they're running like a worldwide escalation sort of thing. You can find the Discord. I'll pop a link down in the description of the video about the Discord. And yeah, you can join in. And so what the idea of that is it's to try and build up some armies and get some people making some narrative for their armies and introducing everyone to different styles of gaming and sort of get everyone talking about hobby and doing hobby together. It's all about connecting like those little things for people like myself. I'm in Adelaide. I have quite a big gaming group, but I'm quite separated from a lot of it, which are on the other side of town. And Tristan himself is located in the middle of nowhere in Canada, from what I know. And so... yeah, it's a really cool thing. I'm enjoying it, so I'm painting up the Hurricanum. We're starting off with generals and writing a bit of narrative behind the general. I did start with my Hurricanum as my general, although we'll talk about that later. I think that's going to change. But, yeah, so that's really been my hobby. I haven't really finished the Hurricanum. I'm probably almost finished the chassis, looking at it now. Just got to finish the wheels, and then probably start working on the horses, the dudes on top, and then the... What would you call it? The orrery on top of the machine? Maybe we'll call it that. The dude with all the thing with all the space bits and stuff that makes the Hurricanum look cool. But so that's really all the hobby. I played one game, but we'll go into that a bit more later because that's probably more important. I caught up with an old mate and did a lot of painting with him. He's getting back into some Age of Sigmar, which is cool. And I've got another hobby date with my mate again tomorrow, so we'll see if we can do some more stuff. Before we get right into the topic of this week, we'll start talking about a couple of shout-outs. First of all, we'll give a shout-out, obviously, to Tristan and Bryce doing the worldwide escalation. It's fantastic. You can find the hashtag on Twitter, WWE AOS, or WWE Age of Sigmar, something like that. You'll find it. Wow, I'm good at these shout-outs. We'll give a shout-out to Measured Gaming. They have a Cities of Sigmar battle report up. And Honest Wargaming, his latest coverage from the Just Play GT. They had the first game was Cities of Sigmar, great Tempest style list. So you can go back and watch that on the YouTube or on Twitch, Honest Wargamer. And lastly, shout out for anyone in South Australia, my local area. We've got a tournament coming up, Southern Rumble, and you should go join that. But yeah, so I haven't actually seen the list from the Tempest. I normally would talk about some sort of tournament results and stuff like that. I'll go back and check that up in the next episode. I sort of want to do it once we've got a few more tournament results coming in, so I can sort of give some comparison and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's time to get right into the list that I was running and what I played against, and then what I'm going to change the list to for my next game and see how it goes. So, as mentioned before, I played a Hallowheart list, and Hallowheart's the magic heavy city. It seems to be everyone's hot pick for the one that's going to do well in competitive play. They're probably right. I think there's a few that can do well in competitive play, and this is certainly one of them. It takes part in the sort of endless spell game that you've generally seen like either Skaven, Gloomspite Gits, or Change Host take part in. And so yeah, the idea is to put endless spells and play a game of endless spells and really sort of play a game that your opponent doesn't really know that well. So, to talk about the original list, what I took, I had as my general a Celestial Hurricaneum with Battle Mage atop it. He was a general. He had Famed Spell Hunter as his warlord, as his command trait, which allows him to dispel one endless spell at +3, or if he wasn't a wizard, he'd be able to dispel an endless spell as if he were. I then had a Sorceress. She had the Wildfire Tome, which allows her to know all spells in the lore. And the reason why I give that to her is she has the highest casting potential of any wizard in the army, because you can take that innate +2, and then get an additional +1 from the Wildfire Retinue or Council, whatever the battalion's called. So she's the best buff piece. Like, she can get a highest cast value, so it seems logical to put all the spells on her so she can cast what she needs. She's also got a really good innate spell on the Sorceress, which is a -1 to hit, and D3 mortal wounds now. It used to just be 1 mortal wound, but now it's D3. So that's a really good, solid War Scroll spell. Jump back to the Hurricane for a bit. Why I've picked the Hurricane, we'll talk about this for a bit. Definitely the +1 to cast. I do have some Battle Mages, we'll talk about them in a sec. In the list, and it gives them +1 to cast, so it's another +1. It's also a high wound wizard, so it was a toss-up between the Hurricaneum and the Sorceress on Black Dragon, really, or maybe the Lord Arcanum on Toralon, or any of those high wound ones, because the idea behind this is, what I've given it is Ignax's Scales as an artifact. I've got a second artifact because I've chosen to have the battalion, and by giving Ignax's Scales to it, it ignores mortal wounds. So for those who don't know Hallowheart, the command trait is I can roll a dice and I allocate that amount of mortal wounds to a wizard hero, and other wizards within a certain distance of that get a + to cast equal to the dice roll. Now it just says the + to cast is to the dice roll, so it doesn't matter if you save some of these. So the Hurricane's got the Ignax's Scale, so it ignores half of those wounds it's going to suffer. So even if it suffers 6, it's going to only suffer 3 wounds. It's not going to matter. The reason why you don't want to put this, I think, on like a small wizard, because if you roll that 6 for the Sorceress and then all of a sudden you fail 5, she's dead. Because the bonus works radiating from the caster, so if the caster actually dies doing this command ability, it doesn't work. At this point, it's probably worth mentioning like the other little Allegiance ability stuff before we go into the rest of the heroes. Probably should have done this first. But the other Allegiance abilities are all wizards can cast an additional spell while they're in Hallowheart, and you ignore the effect. You can choose, to ignore the effects of spells and endless spells on a 5+. So yeah, that's some really cool stuff there. Really powerful. So it means like you're getting 90-point wizards that are dual casters. That's really good. And so yeah, going back into like my army list choices and stuff like that. And we'll finish off the heroes, and then I'll talk about the spells, because I'll talk about why I sort of picked ones and stuff like that. But yeah, so the rest of my heroes are taken up by 3 battle mages. I chose one of 5 mainly because I have the cool old Warhammer like 5th or 6th edition fire mage that came in like the big box. He was like the limited edition cool mini, and that he's such a cool model. It's like a wizard on fire. I have a light wizard and a shadow wizard. So the light wizard spell is fast protection. I can put it on one of my own models, and that allows him to give them -1 to hit that particular unit. Anything attacking them is -1 to hit, which is cool. It makes my particularly weaker battle line that I've taken a little bit harder to get rid of. And the other wizard, Shadow, doesn't allow units to run and -2 to their charge as well. So that's a really impactful, and that comes into when I start talking about endless spells and sort of compounds the effectiveness of those endless spells and the ability to debuff units more and more. Because really, with this list, we're wanting to keep stuff off our units. And then Fireball is just a cool mortal wound spell. You can, if it's one model, they only suffer one mortal wound. 3 to 9, 2 to 9, it's D3, or D6 if they're 10 or more models. Like D6 mortal wounds can be pretty good. But yeah, like I said, he's mainly in there because I've got a really cool model to use. But having some mortal wound splash is actually good. Not a lot of spells, as we're about to go through in the Hallowheart lore, actually do a lot of damage. And so we'll talk about those spells now. So we'll talk straight up. We'll actually got one of the damage ones as the first spell in the lore. Pardon me, a little bit of coffee. Recording this at late at night. So you got Roaming Wildfire. So Roaming Wildfire has a casting value of 6. If successfully cast, pick one enemy unit within 18 inches of the caster that's visible to them. That unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. Then roll a dice for each other enemy unit within 6 inch. On a 4+, that unit also suffers D3 mortal wounds. So that's pretty cool. It's some splash. Where this would be really effective is if your opponent's having to take tight-knit bundles of heroes. This is also really good in like the mirror match, because generally your wizards get better buffing each other near each other. So this is a really good spell to actually have in the mirror match, because you can start splashing some mortal wounds on all their wizards. We've then got Seer Wounds. Now this goes really well with the Hurricaneum, and it's how it takes the damage and all that to give wizards other cast, but it's literally a D6 heal. Cast on a 6, pick one friendly unit with an 18 inch and heal D6 wounds. So this is really good. We'll get to it in the game, but yeah, my Hurricaneum finished on 4 wins of the game just because of this. And the other damage dealing spell in the lore is Elemental Cyclone. So this is really cool. You need a bit of work to make it work to the best of its ability, but so you has casting value 6 and successfully cast. You pick one enemy unit, and all models in that unit within 12 inches of the caster suffer you roll 1 dice, and for each dice you roll, a mortal wound is caused on a 4+. So that can really help thin out hordes. You're causing half the amount of, you're causing a lot of mortal wounds there. We've got Warding Brands. Now this is a really cool spell, and once again it's something that buffs up our relatively weak battle line choices that are taken in the army and makes your opponent have to think about what they're doing. So it's casting value of 6. If successfully cast, pick one friendly unit wholly within 18 inches of the caster that's visible to them. Roll a die until the start of your next hero phase. You roll a dice each time a wound inflicted by a melee weapon is allocated to a model from that unit and is not negated. On a 4+, the attacking unit suffers mortal wounds. Now, this might sound not that good, but when you think of how the combat actually works, how this actually works is like, even if it's a unit of say 3 models, like Aetherwings, and you cast this on them, they go charge into like a unit of Ardboys, right? With this. And what happens is the Ardboys, all their attacks go, and you actually have to resolve and see how much wounds you actually fail. Now, they could die on the first 6, but it's not just the 6 you roll for all damage that would have went through onto them, and all that overkill. So this can actually be quite good. So yeah, it's worth making sure you're seeing all your opponent's rolls and finding out and rolling all of the dice and seeing how many you fail. So yeah, that's a really good spell. You've got Crystal Aegis. Casting value of 5 is successfully cast until the start of your next hero phase, and 1 to rolls for the Eldritch Attunement battle trait. The Eldritch Attunement battle trait is the battle trait I talked about before, where you can ignore the spells and endless spells on a 5+, so that makes that a 4+. And that's a 12-inch bubble cast from the wizard. Wholly within the bubble too. And then you've got Ignite Weapons, which is literally just a 6 to cast. Pick one friendly unit with an 18-inch, give them +1 to wound. Solid Knight. That's a solid spell. Wound pluses to wound are really good. While we're on that chat of like pluses, a really good thing about this battle tome is that it doesn't give a lot of rerolls. It just does pluses. This is something I want to see more of in the future of Age of Sigmar. It speeds up gameplay so much. It's just such a more simple mechanic. You're not rolling hundreds of dice and then rolling hundreds of dice again. It's solid. And this is throughout the whole book. There are rerolls here and there, and that's fine. But the majority of the battle tome is just pluses and minuses, and that's really cool. It makes for a more enjoyable game, makes for a faster game, and that's something we should all get behind and champion and want to see more of. So then on to my units, what I took in the army. So I took 2 units of handgunners. My personal opinion is I like handgunners better than crossbows, free guild that is. And the reason is Hockland long rifles. I like taking them in smaller units, and Hockland long rifles give you not necessarily the ability to take out characters, but they give you a threat to take out characters. They do negative rend, and then they do 2 damage each. Like a 6-wing, and they got like a 30-inch range or something ridiculous like that. And it's that threat. Your opponent has to think about where that Hag Queen gets placed, because these can just pop it off in a turn. They might not, but in combination with your endless spells, these are really good to have in the army for when like you cast spells at something and there's like 2 wounds left on that unit at the backfield or something, and you just need them gone. It's a really cool thing to do, to have access to. So I take 2 units of those. I took 2 units, in this initial list that I was running, and then I took a unit of 30 Dark Shards. I really rate Dark Shards. I think they're better than Free Guild Crossbowmen, hands down. You don't need to worry about the lesser range, because they have the ability to run and shoot thanks to the Sorceress's command ability. They also are 2 shots naturally all the time. They have a better armor save, and they hit better, and they can go to 3s and 3s quite easily. And so they're just a lot more mobile unit, which is good. Then my last battle line is a block of 40 Free Guild Guards, Swords and Shields for the 4-up save. They're literally there to hold bodies. They're probably the cheapest, and they're the cheapest battle line option you got, but they hold the thing. They've got lots of bodies. That's what you want. Other units I took, I don't think I actually took any other units. I think that was it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was my list. I hope that was my list. And I took a bunch of endless spells. So, get into that. The endless spells that I took were the Purple Sun of Shaiish, Aether Void Pendulum, Malevolent Maelstrom, Suffocating Gravetide, Quicksilver Swords, Prismatic Palisade, Soul Snare Shackles. I think that was it. Oh, and Geminins of Ulgish. So, there are a few of these that I weren't sure on, and there's a few I'm not sure on after the game. But reasoning for taking some, like Geminins is just solid. It's negatives to hit and attack, so it makes my units survive longer. I don't have that good of units, so I need my units to survive, so negatives are really good. Prismatic Palisade and Soul Snare Shackles for the same. They give board control in addition to that. Geminids, and we'll talk about what's staying and what's not in that. Purple Sun is just really good for getting rid of some big damaging stuff. It doesn't always go off, but it can. And when it does, like, it's quite significant. It's not necessarily the best against like 30 dudes of like 1 wound, but all of a sudden when you're running through a unit of 5 Ardboys, not Ardboys, well, even Ardboys are better with the Purple Sun, because it technically does 2 mortal wounds for every 6 it rolls. Yeah, we'll start talking about like what their empowered effects do as well. So we'll start with the Purple Sun. Its move goes to a 12, so which gives it like an 18-inch threat range, because it's cast wholly within 6 and then can move 12, which is really cool. Quicksilver Swords, you roll 15 dice instead of 12. Suffocating Gravetide is an 8-inch move, or it just gets a bonus to move. Prismatic Palisade allows the Blinding Light to go off on a 4+ instead of 5+. That's another negative to hit you can potentially put on enemies. Warning, you can hit your own units with it. I got hit a couple of times in the game I played. Soul Snare Shackles is really cool because it's a 9-inch from the first one, so which gives it quite a large footprint. Aether Void Pendulum doesn't have a upgraded one. And what else did I say? I took Malevolent Maelstrom. It starts with a point on its little bomb counter. And I think that's all that I took. Oh, and the Geminins, sorry. They allow you to reroll the damage. So that's actually really good because it allows you to do it on both, which you can never do before. No other army can do it because you can't be in two realms at once. Unless you're playing a narrative game in a realm gate matrix. That's something for a very different sort of game, though. But yeah, so that was my list. And yeah. Just knock my light out. Oh well. So just give me a sec. Go. That's the light back on. Can't see what I'm doing. Apologies for that in the middle of trying to record. So yeah, I played a game against a friend with his Iron Jaws. He was taking the Iron Suns. I'm not too familiar with all these rules, sorry. If you want a really good rundown of some Iron Jaws stuff, I strongly suggest checking out Doom and Darkness. He knows his stuff with Iron Jaws. He's a great Iron Jaws player, and a great player in general, so he's the man to go look at for some of that stuff. Honest Wargame also did a review as well with Nathan, obviously, being quite Iron Jaws fan. So that's also a good listen. But yeah, so he had a Mega Boss on Maw Crusher. I speak English real good. 2 of the wavy stick dudes, War Hunters, a Shaman, 2 or 3 units of 5 Ard Boys, a unit of 10 Brutes, a unit of 5 Brutes, 2 units of 3 Pigs, and I think that was it. Oh, and he was in like he was in a battalion that allowed his I think it's an Ard Fist it's called, which allows him to get one of the Mighty Destroyer moves on a unit for free. And of course his spell on the Shaman was Mighty Hand of Gork. And so we played Total Conquest, which is the mission where it used to be the really weird deployment, but now it's deployment from like halfway line. It's a still pretty weird deployment zone, quite small actually, because it's sort of, you take half the board and then slice that on a diagonal half, so from the halfway point of the table to the corner opposite. And there's 4 objectives, and with the game you literally just score a point for every objective, but you score 2 if you take it off your opponent in that turn. So end result of the game, we'll get to that. We'll talk about that now, and then we'll talk away through our game. So the end result was a hard-fought victory for the cities of Sigmar. I won 16-15. Now, there were some things to take into account with this game, in that we were playing using Realm of Life spells and Realmscape features, although we purposely avoided a couple. We purposely did not skip back a little bit, sorry. And we'll talk about why we used them. We used them because my friend is going off to CanCon. Unfortunately, I can't make it this year. Can't leave the wife with 2 newborns, but he's going off to CanCon. And so CanCon will be using Realm of Life, all the spells and everything. This was also pretty good because it allowed me to test an idea. It has there's a teleport in the spell, in the lore, which is cool because I wasn't sure whether I need the Soulstream Bridge or not in the list, and the more and more I thought about it, and definitely after the game it'll be going in the list because I certainly need it. But also didn't realise at this point the Sorceress's command ability was run and charge or run and shoot in the same turn, so that will definitely be something to think about in later as well, on whether or not I need the Soulstream Bridge in the end, but it's probably going in. And so with that, we playing in that, and so I dropped him by 1. I took the first, I gave him the first turn. I was confident. I just stuck some. Oh, there's the thing I forgot to mention that was in my list. There's 10 Black Ark Corsairs because I need Corsairs in my list because I love Scourge Privateers. But anyway, they're not really important. Oh, I guess they are. We'll talk. We're good at this podcast stuff and remembering stuff that I should be talking about. Need to organise my notes a bit better next time. Oh well. So the Scourge Privateers, they're 80 points. The reason why I choose them over Free Good Guard is they've got potential 10 shots. So if it's not on a list that's going to alpha strike me, I can use them for much more utility. Anyway, so he took first turn. He's here we go again. Mega Boss on War Crusher flew up the battlefield, used all his Mighty Destroyer. He was using the command ability that allows him to do it for free. The big unit of 5 brutes got teleported straight up in my face. With a successful cast, his wizard was out of range for me to dispel or unbind, whichever one. Always getting confused. And so they were into my lines turn 1. The 10 Corsairs went down and 10 handgunners went down, although the handgunners put through a couple of wounds onto the Maw Crusher when it charged, which is good. And so I lost 10 handgunners and 10 privateers, but I made sure that my front lines when I deployed were not in range for him to pile in. He'd also gone first, so it was into my turn. So my first turn, I started by getting some spells off, casting some endless spells. Big impact ones were I cast a Palisade behind his Maw Crusher. I cast the Soul Snare Shackles into the middle of the board that were near the unit of 10 brutes. And Purple Sun went through his Iron Jaws at the front, and I managed to actually kill 3 of them with 3 6s out of 5 dice, and took 3 brutes out of that 5 that charged my lines and decimated the privateers off the table turn 1. Then cast a Pendulum up to threaten his flank, and the Quicksilver Swords. I got Spell Portal off. And cast the Wildfire, the Elemental Cyclone spell off, and did some damage to the Yard Boys at the back there. I think I killed like 3 of them out of a 10-man blob, out of a 5-man blob. No, I killed 1. Yeah, so I thought it was like a 10-man blob at the back, but it was actually 2 5s. So, but either way, did some mortal wounds up the back, cast Fireball and Arcane Bolt and stuff like that, and did some more mortal wounds across the board to him. In my shooting phase, the Dark Shards did almost took off the Maw Crusher, shooting it, and popped some wounds across the rest of his army. Only one unit handgunners, the Hockling Long Rifle on the other flank, failed, but could have taken the last 2 wounds off the Maw Crusher. So then I was left with a charge. I ummed and ahed, but sent the Dark Shards into combat. They did have ignite weapons, so they got +1 a wound. They're hitting on 3s, and so they were 3s and 3s, or 4s and 3s, I can't remember exactly. But either way, they got 2 wounds through. He failed both of them on double 1, but he had used the command ability to reroll failed saves of 1, but he failed them again. And so the Maw Crusher got taken off. Meanwhile, the Free Good Guard had moved over and slaughtered the last 2 brutes quite efficiently. And so, at the end of my turn, he was up on 3 points. I was only on the 1, but I was confident I could take him back at a later date. And yeah, so moved on from that. I won the priority and I gave him the turn. This allowed me to move the Purple Sun. I then killed 2 of his pigs on the other flank as the Purple Sun sort of moved up. And what this did is meant he had to move the pendulum, sort of nudge it slightly forward, but it did nothing because the pendulum only moves in one direction. It's a little boy band. And yeah, so that was the idea behind giving him the first turn, is that I could get the Purple Sun out of my own lines and do some more damage to him, and he had to move he could only use the pendulum against me, which couldn't actually touch me. So then he came in, his brutes then passed all their things, they got through the middle in his turn, so his 10 brutes charged down into my Free Good Guard. His other flank, he was sort of stopped a bit and couldn't quite reach or make the charges worth making. I think he actually failed with his Gore Grunters, and then on the other side I had 5 Ard Boys get teleported and charged through a forest into the flank of my Dark Shards. But then, so he did some damage to my Dark Shards, not really enough to worry the Dark Shards, so he used a command point to pass them. To auto pass them, the Free Good Guard, I had to use the other ones, and now I was down to 0 command points. Having to make them pass as well, just because I needed the bodies. The Dark Shards didn't really get hit that hard though, but the Free Good Guard most certainly took a big hammering in that turn. And so the next turn, my spells started slinging out. On my turn, I pretty much decimated those 10 brutes to the point of, I think I dropped them down to like 2 or so. I dispelled the Purple Sun, but then cast it back again through them. And then also cast the Geminids out and did some damage to the Ardboys attacking the Dark Shards. And put the Quicksilver Swords out as well. And yeah, the Purple Sun recast, killed a couple of brutes, but then also hit the Gorgrond. Hit the brutes, killed a couple more of them. And yeah, then we went into priority again, and I won the turn again, which I gave away again. Quite happy for the order to stay the same. I then moved like in the spells, made sure the Geminids hit. The Purple Sun he couldn't really use. He had to sort of... I think he used the Quicksilver Swords because he can move it and try and get my handgunners. He actually failed to do any damage with the Quicksilver Swords. Then I moved Purple Sun into like nowhere land because I couldn't get anything at this point. And from there, I'd managed to score a couple of points. I managed to get 2. The Dark Shards retreated out of combat. No, it wasn't this turn that they did that. Sorry, scratch that. And so went into his turn. He started doing some damage. I was left with quite a few bodies on the board, but he was also taking some serious damage as well. He was down to 5 Ardboys. Both tunes of 5 Ardboys, or a couple of water, and his characters really, except the Maw-Crusher. And so from there, we then went into priority. The next turn, he had to take priority on. He won the roll, and he had to take it, because if he didn't, I was going to do stuff. Unfortunately, I managed to get a couple of lucky kills on the other spells and did some damage where I needed to. And so went into his turn. He tried to punch through the Dark Shards, did some serious damage to them, but didn't actually kill them. And I used my only command point to save them. And so from there, I won the turn after that. And on that turn, then it's into my turn. Didn't win a turn. It was into my turn. I then cast the teleport and took the Hurricanum up the board and stole his back objective. Thus taking it off him, getting 2 points. The Dark Shards then retreated and took his left-hand objective, getting me another 2 points, and this put me in the lead in a commanding position. Going into the last 2 turns, it would now be he needs to take him, but he's only got characters. And then I also managed to kill quite a few. He only had characters left at this point and some Ardboys. The Ardboys charged in and did nothing to the Dark Shards. Absolutely nothing. They whiffed entirely. And then I won the priority. They shot the Ardboys off the board. The Hurricane jumped over, killed his shaman, took his back objective. I ended up taking all 4 on that one, and it was game over at that point. So, looking back on the game, there's some important lessons I learned. That I need to think about next time. There are a few times when I cast a spell so close to me that I needed to give away the turn in order to use them. There were certainly the need for a teleport or something fast moving is most certainly needed in the army, so that's why I've gone for the Soul Scream Bridge in the army now. The army does lack bodies. So while it has endless spells, you need to do some bodies. I kept thinking, I did forget about quite a few spells I had, and I think that just comes with time. I need to play the army more and think. I also didn't cast some of my endless spells, so I probably had too many in the list. But that was sort of the idea, that I'd use the ones, and then part of my thinking behind putting so many endless spells in the list was that I'd use the ones that I need. And so Malevolent Maelstrom and Suffocating Gravetide did not see the table, but everything else in the list did. So we'll talk about I think the army did well. I think we'd better play. I could have maybe done some things better, but I don't particularly think it's going to be super overpowered. I think you can win some serious games. It's probably got 3 games in it regardless. With some good play 4 and with some luck as well, could probably go 5. We'll see. So now, just give me a sec, just bring up my new list on Azir. I'm a big fan of Azir. I personally really like it. Just simplicity, I use it like every day. So if you are thinking of getting an app, definitely get Azir. Like the buck you pay for whatever it is. If I'm paying $1.30 in Australia, it's probably like 10 cents in some other country. But yeah, so this is the list I've gone for now. So another thing I sort of saw in the army that I needed was I was really tight on command points and near the end and at the end of turns. I didn't get my command ability off to give me spell bonuses, so luckily he was quite out of range a lot. So I've changed it up to actually not make the Hurricane the general. He'll still take Ignite Scales, he just won't be the general. I've also swapped out a Battle Mage for a Knight Incantor. The reason for that is Knight Incantor makes a good general because he's got a good armor save. And then the Sorceress will be the Adjutant. The Sorceress will still have the Wildfire Tome because she's the most versatile, which is the most powerful wizard in the army. The Incantor also gives me an auto unbind. Now, this is important because while the army is really good at casting, it doesn't have a lot of good defense, and it's probably mostly important to use that first unbind. I think it's going to be important anyway on the first turn, or when you're suffering your first hero phase if you give away the turn, because you won't have endless spells. Later in the game, the unbind's probably not as useful, the auto unbind, because you should have your endless spells out and your opponent should be needing to dispel them and not cast their own spells. So if you do well with your endless spells, you can do quite well. And so, yeah. So the Hurricane is still on the list. And it's solid, like... yeah, the Hurricane is still on the list. And so, but I've still got 2 Battle Mages and they'll probably Light and Shadow. Unfortunately, the Fire one will probably get dropped, which is sad because he's such a cool model. But I'll paint him up anyway, and we can always trial and error all these different wizards. Sorry if you can hear a little buzz, just messing with your wife. Little Bubba's waking up a bit. So my battle line has changed a bit. I've now gone for 3 units of 10 handgunners, 43 Guild Guard, and 10 Dread Spears. The Dread Spears are in there because I just want a little bit more combat potential. They're also cheaper, so it just opens up a few more points than the Dark Shards. I've gone for 3 units of handgunners over 2 because this does put the 6 wounds out. It gives me all my screens. I have dropped the Corsairs as well. The 43 Guild Guard just stay there solid. Wildfire Retinue stays in the list, and the spells are now Purple Son of Shaiish, Quicksilver Swords, Soul Snare Shackles, Prismatic Palisade, Umbral Spell Portal, Geminins of Ulgish, and the Soul Scream Bridge. So I also dropped the Aether Void Pendulum. It was probably the hardest one for me to drop. It might see its way back in, but the Spell Portal is definitely needed in there because it makes Elemental Cyclone work well. Elemental Cyclone's good, but it means your wizard needs to be within 12 inches stuff, and you really don't want that. And so giving him the ability of Umbral Spell Portal, who in the cities of Sigmar, because it's empowered, has an unlimited range, which is really cool. Soul Scream Bridge is in there because obviously the teleport was needed. Playing my game, how crucial that was, that teleport spell from the Realm of Life lore was really important. Geminids, Palisade, Soul Snare Shackles, Quicksilver Swords, and Purple Sun, all solid picks, and they'll probably all stay on the list. Geminids maybe is up for some culling. The Battalion, I'm still unsure on. It does drop my drops and give me the second artifact and give the Sorceress the ability to have a good spread of spells. And yeah, the Handgunners, 3 units of 10. I think that's probably better than having 2, and then the Privateers. The Dread Spears allow me to do that. I'm pretty fine not with dropping the Dark Shards, I think. We'll see how that goes. And the other thing with the Dread Spears is because they can do some combat potential, the run and charge becomes a bit more viable on them. If that isn't a good choice, we might see some changes to try and fit it in. I am, like I said, concerned about the Wildfire Retinue. Do I really need that additional +1? in the game before. I was casting spells on like 16s and 17s anyway. So I don't know whether I really need it. And the Knight Incantor probably is a solid choice over another Battle Mage. Just that auto unbind. The Hurricaneum's cool. 2 Battle Mages and Sorceress. I think that's pretty solid. So we'll give this a run out. Hopefully I've organised a game with my mates Ironjaws. And so should be able to do some stuff there. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm going to take a short break, and I'll be back with some Q&A over some questions that have been up on the Facebook group. Alright, and we are back. So, thank you all for continuing to listen on to Mortal Citizens. So, just into some Q&A now, while we wrap up the show. So I posted on the Facebook group some questions that people had for me. So the first one comes in from Marco Francis. He's got a few questions here. So he's got, what are your must-have units for each respective city to make them competitive? Well, this is an interesting one. So this is the first one of his questions. Must-have. So I think we'll go with like things I think are overly good in all cities, and that is probably 3 units. And I don't think it matters which city you put them in, although some you'll struggle to find points in, as we talked about. So the first one I think is obviously Phoenix Guard. They're probably the best unit in the book, hands down. I think you can find places for them in any city list. I mean, I'm being tempted to put them in my Hallowheart list. I'm not sure about it. They are on a tad of the expensive side, 160 points for 10. However, they are extremely resilient. I do think probably the go-to wizard is the Sorceress. I think she's good in any list you put her in. You put her with some 10-unit chaff, and she's got a +2 to cast naturally, thanks to some killing some of her dudes. And the other one I think is good in any list is Shadow Warriors. They're just great at what they do. You see things like Canary Heartrenders in Daughters of Cain armies all the time. And there's a reason for that. That ability just to pop up whenever, wherever, and do some damages and take objectives is really good. Your opponent can't leave objectives unguarded if you've got Shadow Warriors in the list, or he can't leave them lightly guarded because they're no slouches in combat or shooting. So yeah, I sort of went a bit away from your main question, mainly because I think that's a topic in its own and probably stuff we'll search for over the entirety of this podcast. I don't really know the proper answers to all of that yet. Power rankings for wizards in City and Secrets, including allies. Already stated, I think the Sorceress is the best wizard, hands down. On that note, I do not think the Sorceress on Black Dragon is very good. I think she's overpriced and very points. I think she's just a point sink. If you're going to go for the bigger wizards, I do think the Hurricaneum is the best. It has consistent mortal wound output, a decent spell, buffs your other wizards, a decent move still, and a good armor save for a wizard. So yeah, I probably think Sorceress, Hurricaneum, Battle Mages, Knight Incantor, and then probably like the Lord Arcanums after that. Sisters of Thorn probably before Lord Arcanums actually. So yeah, empowering for objectives, capturing and securing units. Well, this one's pretty easy. Best objective securing unit in the book is Shadow Warriors. We just went through that. Yeah. So then John Hogreef, I hope I've said your name right, mate. What are the best Stormcast models to consider running, if any? Well, I think there's a few options here, and this is probably another open-ended question where we can go to in great detail in another podcast, but we'll answer it here anyway. So I think like good shouts like Knight Incantor, that auto unbind is always a good thing. The Lord Arcanum on foot is a good shout. In Hallowheart, because it can help use the endless spells, or any list really, because endless spells are good in any, like Hallowheart just makes it easy to cast them. It's probably the best like going crazy on them, but I think the ability to move endless spells extra is really good come in any city's list. The Knight of Xeros is a good shout for the reroll. Reroll or +1, I can't remember which one it is, but either way, it's a buff piece. It's really good. Star Drakes are really good in Living City, particularly the Drakespawn Templar, because he can shoot. And Dracos are really good in that as well, because they can shoot and charge, and move, and then make like a really small charge. I think that's probably it. That are like really solid choices. I think Evocators are a bit overpriced for cities, both variants, because you do lack points because you want to try and get all your options in. Other things like maybe good. Yeah, I can't think of any that like are really jumping out at me besides those. Of course, you can always have like maybe a little Stormcast contingent of like, say, a Knight Vexillor with a banner that allows you to swap something over. That could be useful with a Living City actually. You can fling something as well, so you get technically like another unit off the board, sort of. So next question comes in from Dave Woe. Which unit hero is an auto-include in any list for you? Which are city specific? Which combinations of units, heroes' abilities are great and which ones are meh? Well, the whole podcast is about your last sort of part of the question, like going through cities and sort of talking about them a lot. Which unit is an auto-include in any list? I'm probably going to say the Sorceress. The innate +2 to cast is just really good. Like, she has the best innate casting. Okay, you need to pay for some dudes, but you can make that Darkened Coven unit, and a lot of them are solid choices. Like, Dark Shards are really good, Dread Spears and that. But, even sacrificing an Executioner or a Blackguard is a really solid choice. And this last question is, I'd like to know if you guys have any suggestions for other GW kits that can be used to kit bash human soldiers models. The Elven ones come to mind, but I'm looking for more models with a fancy medieval side to bash with. I'm out of ideas and I don't want to use third-party bits for entire bodies. Alright, so I get what you're asking for. You're asking for other models that can make ranges. Well, Carrick Acolytes, first of all. If you've seen Duncan from Warhammer TV fame, his Solakian, I believe they're called, guard, you can actually go look on Warhammer TV and find out how he built them. They're really good shouts. I think a lot of the actual Warcry warbands will be really good shouts to make some cool looking sort of more savage free guild. On the same point, Blood Reavers are another good shout for that sort of thing. You're looking for anything human, so really like less chaosifying. A lot of the chaos models really is probably your best bet. But then again, a lot of them are on 32, so you've got to watch out for that. They are bigger models. So that's just something to think about. And, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, that's probably my best advice on that, is using like chaos models and sort of unchaosifying them. Anyway, yeah, and like I said, on your other sort of questions about like what units do you think are good in combo, that's what this whole podcast is about, showing that love for Cities of Sigmar that I have. So we'll touch on that through episodes, and you'll see more and more of what I think of them. And I hope to keep you around for more episodes. So that's it for Q&A. We'll take a short break and we'll finish up in a bit. Thank you very much. Alright, so last sort of portion of the show, something I want to talk about what I'm trying to do next. So as you all know, I should have some more games with Hallowheart, and we can talk more about that later. But something I've really been working on is trying to get my privateers to work in Cities of Sigmar. And sort of like the more Dark Earth aesthetic, and probably some Order Serpentis as well. So I've got a couple of lists that I want to try and run out. I'm going to try out the Monster Mash list. I don't think it's going to be any good. However, I want to give it a run out just to see how fun it is to play, if it can in fact do anything. So to explain the list, you can take Anvilguard Allegiance, and it allows Charybdis and Warhydras to become battle line. So I'll be taking 5 Warhydras as battle line. I'll be taking 2 Dreadlords on Black Dragon and a Sorceress on Black Dragon, and that's the list. And it just sounds cool in my head to have that many models on the table that are all just dragons. I'll probably try and convert the dragons to like some Hydra sort of things and do that. And that's sort of like the silly list I want to try out, if for nothing else than just a bit of fun. And lastly, we've got to get into my privateers. So I've written up what I think is probably going to be my initial idea for a privateer list. We'll sort of see how this goes, and we'll evolve this as it goes on. So looking at a 2,000 point list, obviously we've got a command point in the list. We've got 2 Black Ark Fleet Masters and a Sorceress. One of the Fleet Masters will be the General, the Sorceress will be the Adjutant. 2 blocks of 40 Corsairs, 2 units of 3 Scourge Runner Chariots, 2 blocks of 10 Corsairs, and 3 singular Scourge Runner Chariots. We then got a unit of 20 Blackguard, 3 Gyrocopters, and the Soulscream Bridge. And we're playing this in Tempestai. So the reason we're doing Tempestai and not Anvilguard is because Anvilguard, I can't see it working with privateers. The ability to like run and like the extra save on the first turn, the extra move, allows me to get these pirates into position and potentially shoot things off the table as they get within that 9-inch range. Also, so we'll talk a bit about all the different models and like how pirates have sort of changed a bit for me. Because anyone who knows I really love my Scourge Privateers. I took them to CanCon last year. I'm still the only person in the world to run Scourge Privateers in a competitive level. In a GT. And so we'll have my general. I'm not sure on artifacts yet. We've still got a little bit to work out on the list, but we'll get there. Sorceress, she's there to cast Soulscream Bridge to help get units where they need to be. 40 Corsairs. So I'm not actually sure if I'm going to take the shooting ones, because there's the Sorceress's other spell that she's going to take is going to be the Aura of Glory, which is +1 attack. Now you can combine this with Privateers and the command ability from the Fleet Master, actually give them 6 attacks each in the combat ones, because they've got 2 different weapon profiles. They get an extra attack for each weapon. So they go to 4 and then they go to 6. So they actually absorb extra attack buffs really well. If you're playing in the Realm of Death, you can then do another one, and they can be like 8 attacks each. So that's some food for thought. Privateers themselves, they're pretty good. They hit on 3s when they're in big units. They wound on 4s. And yeah, they just put out a lot of bad, but a lot of attacks. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see whether the combat units end up doing the damage, or if I swap to shooting, because they can run and shoot is this sort of 3C. And we're talking about like lots of Scourge Runner Chariots. So 2 units of 3, they're there to absorb buffs really well. And then 3 singular Scourge Runner Chariots as well, which is just because you get a better shot out of the champion. And they're also just more units and more sort of distractions to put around the board. 2 units of 10 Corsairs for some chaff. 20 Blackguard, they'll be the retinue for the general. And the Adjutant will stick near them, so they get the bonus to hit, thanks to being near a Darkened Coven's hero. 3 Gyrocopters, they're just really good. There's some horde killing potential. The Privateers do really well against like more elite armies, because they put weight of attacks down on stuff. And the Gyrocopters will help do a bit of horde thinning for them. And the Soulscream Bridge, just because some movement shenanigans. The ability just to move. Although the chariots will really help with there, but this allows me to get the big bodies across the board. Unfortunately, there's no Charybdis in the list. I love the Charybdis model. It's fantastic, but it's just not good. And at 170 points, it's not even... I can't even take it. Like, it needs to drop in points or get better. Yeah, it's sad, because I love the model. It's at that point where a model all of a sudden becomes so bad, even if you like it, you don't want to play it. It's not like, say, people who love Manfred von Cast Iron, and he's worse than the other 2 Mortarks, but he's still good-ish. Yeah, he's overcosted, but he still has use. you know. They're just bad. Because going back to that crazy monster list, I start thinking, well, maybe take a couple of cryptids in this, swap out a couple of War Hydras, but you won't, because the War Hydras get the benefits from the Black Dragons, Dreadlords on Black Dragons. So yeah, I still haven't found a list that works in War Hydras. So that sort of leads me on to my last point that I want to talk about, which is how to make Anvilguard work. I love Anvilguard, like the narrative of the city and all that sort of stuff is really cool, and I want to find a way to make that city work. Like, there is obviously people are talking about one spell, the vitriolic spray or whatever it's called, that makes it save dash. Like, yeah, that's cool, but it's got a 6-inch range and you put spell portal in. You're only a single caster in that city, so that means you need to have 2 wizards to be able to do it. You're investing a lot, 70 points of spell portal, even 2 wizards, 180 or so, and 250 to make that work, and then it's relying on 2 wizards both casting their spells. And so realistically, to guarantee that, you want them both to be sorceresses, and then which means you need to have some Dark and Coven models to sacrifice. So then you're up by another 100, 200 points. So it's cool, but yeah, it shouldn't be something. I'm working on an idea that I think might work, but we'll come back to it I'm struggling to find. I've been asked by a lot of people to try and see if I can make Anvilguard work, so I'm going to try. I'm going to do my best to make the most competitive Anvilguard list I possibly can. If you have any ideas for Anvilguard at all, please get in touch and we'll have a chat. And we'll see if we can come up with something, and I'll test it out. And same with anything, and so to continue that point, same with anything. If you have a list that you're not sure on, you think you might be cool, you're an investor, I'm more than happy to try it out. I own most Free City stuff. I just don't own Dwarden. I've never been a dwarf sort of guy, but I'm quite happy to go get some Dwarden now. So I've got Free Gold, I've got all High Elves. Well, I sold most of my High Elves now. I've got Phoenix Guard and Shadow Warriors. Got Wanderers, Wood Elves, and got all the Dark Elf stuff. So yeah, if you have army list ideas that you'd like to see, by all means, get in contact. We can have a chat about this. You can find me on the Facebook page for Cities of Sigmar, easy enough. I am the admin for it, or on the big Facebook group that I run as well. You can @me on Twitter as well. And so yeah, we can have chats about that. But I think that's it for today. Thank you all for listening to this. I hope this has been somewhat insightful for you. Like, the idea of this whole thing is to show my views on Cities of Sigmar, show there's some love for this, talk about stuff that's happening. Hopefully in the next episode, by the time I do it, we'll have some more tournaments. I'll be able to have a look at some tournaments and tournament results with Cities of Sigmar, and we can start talking about them a bit more. If you have been to a tournament, please get in touch with me so we can talk about it more. I'd love to have a chat with you about how you went, what you thought, and all this sort of stuff. Might even get you on the podcast here with me, having a chat. But without further ado, that's going to be me signing off at the end of the podcast. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us and listening all the way through. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Let's get that love for Cities of Sigmar out there. Also, if you subscribe on Christmas Day, you're going to go in the running to win a cool little present. For every 100 subscribers we pass on the channel, we're going to be adding a Christmas present under the tree, myself and the partner. And we've got some Christmas cool, gamey sort of stuff planned in the future for the channel. Lorehammer stuff will continue to be coming out on a daily basis for the channel as well. People have been enjoying those, so we'll get more of those out. Yeah, but you can find me, as I said, on the 2 Facebook groups, on all the Facebook groups. Really, you'll be able to find me. Just look for Luke Stone. I'm the admin. You can also @me on Twitter @DadhammerNeo. You can obviously talk to me through here. I'm on most of the WhatsApp groups. You can sign. I'm on the Cities of Sigmar WhatsApp group and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I'll chat to you all next time. Thank you very much for joining me again, and we'll see you on the next episode of Mortal Citizens. Ciao for now.